welcome to the Affinity Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about a April 2023 McKinsey report about the state of organizations in 2023 and discussing 10 shifts transforming organizations. Business leaders around the world are currently addressing not only economic volatility, geopolitical instability, and the lingering effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, but also a range of organizational shifts that have significant implications for structures, processes, and people. The shifts include complex questions about how to organize for speed to shore up resilience, find the right balance between in-person and remote work models, address team members' declining mental health, and build new institutional capabilities at a time of rapid technological change, among others.
So McKinsey did a survey, and it was about 2,500 business leaders across the world. And what they were looking for was to get insights into and stories. So to get texture, not just data, and they wanted commentary around what's going on and what are leaders doing and what do we need to do to face forward. And they came up with 10 insights, and I thought they were pretty fascinating. So I'd love to chat about them in this episode.
Okay, what's the first insight?
Okay, so the first one is increasing speed and strengthening resilience. And I think this is almost two things because increasing speed is inevitable. With the introduction of AI and other tools and just mechanization and automation, the speed of things is increasing exponentially. And technology is like in a clear vertical climb in terms of what's being achieved. So, we really need to be fast, nimble, and resilient. And the resilience piece is more around crises. We look at what happened in the pandemic, and very few people were prepared for that. Very few companies came out of that unscathed. But our partner in Affinity OS, Andrew, talks about this often, that in the survey system, masks and COVID and these, sort of salient points came up well in advance of everything going into shutdown. And if we had have paid more attention to those signals early, again, these lead indicators, we would have been much more resilient in how we approach things and possibly would have avoided some of the holes that we landed in. So it's really a matter of being ahead of the game. And you can increase speed, but if you sort of don't see what's ahead, that's not always a good thing. So it's being nimble and it's being resilient. And the resilience piece is getting tougher because it's really a competitive marketplace out there, incredibly competitive. And I think people, particularly post-COVID, are struggling with resilience. They're struggling with mental health. They're struggling with the ability to handle all that's on. So, this is something where, again, it comes back to taking care of your people. If we can really support our people and give them a great environment where they feel they are their best and it's the best part of their day, then, again, the formula, but then the members or the customers are going to have a great day too. But importantly, we've got to start with our team and help build resilience within our team.
So there's the statistics. In the 2020-21 economic recovery, resilient companies generated TSR 50% higher than their less resilient peers. So that just kind of sums it up, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you talk about the second shift?
So it's a hybrid workplace, and it's a balance between in-person and remote work. And obviously there's certain roles like a receptionist who is greeting and checking people in. It's a little hard for her to work from home. But there are a lot of roles where people can work from home. And I think a lot of people, when the lockdowns happened and people were working from home, full time, a lot of people were excited about that prospect. But I think very quickly, and you could speak to this, Janj, very intelligently, they realized that 5 days a week at home, in your office, facing the washing and all the other things that happen within the household that, you've got to put off or you get distracted by, it's tough. And so I think the formula for people that can work in a hybrid environment is about 2 days at home and 3 days at work seems to be the number that's coming out. For different people, that'll be different. An introvert may prefer more time at home than less, but introvert, extrovert, or whichever way, shape, or form it takes, it's very clear from the data that it's important for people to get a little bit of both. And definitely think some companies went to all remote, thinking this is great. We don't have to pay for offices. We don't have to, support all that infrastructure. But they've found that the degeneration of people's mental health has been a much bigger or had a much more negative effect on the business than maybe the overhead of having that collective space for people to gather and connect.
Yeah. So for me, I spent 10 years working from home. And for me, it's less about distractions, but more about social interaction. So the face-to-face meetings and seeing people in the community within the office and the workplace is something that's really sometimes I think taken for granted. And I think that's really important. And it does affect mental health for sure. So, the community of the face-to-face daily going to the office is really important too. So there's more than 4 out of 5 team members who have worked in hybrid models over the last 2 years want to retain them.
Yeah.
So that's the statistic around the hybrid workplaces. Can you move on to the third shift?
Yeah, so AI, it's in everything you read, it's everything you hear. I talk about Affinity OS, often the platform, our EMPS and MPS platform, and it's driven by an AI engine. And AI is incredibly powerful. It's an incredibly powerful tool. But just recently, the EU has come up with a policy in conjunction with Google and other players for AI, because there's a lot of potential harm that could happen with it. And there's a lot of people that are seeing this as doom and gloom for employees or team members. But in truth, AI is a tool. And it's a very powerful tool, and it can be used really effectively. In the case of Affinity OS, we use it to bring a lot of data together to distill it into qualitative and quantitative sound bites for managers and even frontline people, so that they can see very clearly amongst all the chatter what's important to the members or the people that are being polled. So AI, you hear about ChatGPT and its ability to write papers, for example, for university students or other activities. Yes, all of that exists out there, and again, a powerful tool. But it's like everything, the right tool in the hands of the right person is a really powerful thing. So I think we need to embrace AI. We just need to be judicious about how we use it. And respectful. There's a lot of tools coming out now for exactly that, universities and organizations to be able to see, was this generated by a bot or was this generated by a person? And so there'll be continuous iterations of that surveillance of AI and making sure that there's not abuse with it. But AI is a part of the future, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, organizations used an average of 3.8 AI capabilities. So, for example, natural language generation or computer vision in 2022, which was double the 1.9 used in 2018. All right, number 4.
Number 4 is new means and rules of attraction, retention, and attrition around people, and meaning, we've got to get more creative. Companies are really struggling to find talent and to retain talent. And whether we like it or not, across the spectrum, people are struggling with this, whether it's contractors or people in the fitness industry or people in the hotel industry or the restaurant industry. It doesn't matter where it is. It's challenging. And I really feel like the best methodology is to retain people. But you only retain people if they're engaged, and measuring that engagement is important. Again, Affinity OS, we do that for that reason, that if a person's engaged, they're much more likely to stay. I think the stat is if they're 10% more engaged, they're 87% more likely to stay. That's a massive, shift just for that relatively small amount of additional engagement. But there's something you've got to measure. And so this retention piece to me is at the heart of it. And there's also going to be attrition, natural attrition, and that's just to be expected. And there may be some forced attrition, and sometimes that's the right thing too. But like we talked about in the previous episode, but we've got to get more creative. We've got to get more attentive to how we both attract, retain, and manage our teams. Yeah.
So 39% of respondents in a survey conducted in 7 countries say they're planning to leave their jobs in the next 3 to 6 months. So there you have it for engagement. Number 5.
So number 5 is closing the capability chasm is what it's called. And that really means, I'm going to say, tooling up our people. We talked about this in the last podcast as well, where we're referencing the fact that as leaders and managers, we need to be growing our team, but we need to be improving their skill sets. And some of this actually really comes back to post-hiring. When we bring somebody on, the orientation or launch that we put them through is really oftentimes setting them up for success or for failure. And so a big part of this capability chasm is people really understanding what their job is, how to do it, and their interface with other team members. Constantly talk about, the silos that get generated in organizations. And, I'm constantly referencing the Venn diagram of that overlap. And we are looking for that ability to bring people together and connect them. But also they will influence each other. They will help each other. They'll be there for each other. And so they'll actually help sort of bridge some of that capability chasm as well. Pretty important. And technology is going to be a part of that. And it's being au fait with technology. It's being okay with technology because you're aging. So for older workforce members or managers or leaders, that doesn't mean we have to say, I'm not good with that. I remember shifting from PC to Mac, and it was I wouldn't say a horrible transition, but it was a little tough. But now I'm looking, oh, wow, it was so good to be able to make that movement, and I really appreciate that space. It's good to be ambidextrous, but equally, I think we need to constantly, as managers, leaders, and particularly as we do grow older, challenge ourselves with new challenges like that.
So the statistic for this point is that only 5% of respondents say their organizations already have the capabilities that they need. Let's move on to number 6.
So it's called walking the talent tightrope. And really what that is about is that there's always a balance between a person's role and responsibilities and keeping that balanced with quality of life. So, not giving them too much that they don't have quality of life and their mental health deteriorates, their health deteriorates. So it is ensuring that you have sufficient team members on board. Also that we're remunerating people appropriately, and that will change over time, inevitably, as cost of living goes up. It's hard because a lot of times, particularly in the fitness industry, we don't adjust our rates annually. When I was in the US with a company over there, we had a policy of adjusting our rates every year. Why? Because we wanted to give our team members a bump, appropriate bump relative to inflation and what they were seeing. And we couldn't do that if we kept the membership dues static and we kept raising wages. So that talent tightrope is one of not just, paying people more when cost of living goes up, or maybe when they're doing more work, or they're more productive, or they're moving up through the ranks. It is about keeping, and it's good that they've called it the tightrope, but helping people keep things in balance and their life in balance. And that hybrid workplace that we talked about previously, or, how to manage that, it is about balance. It's about striking the right balance. And goodness, it's complex and it varies from person to person. But if we're intuitive and if we're listening and if we have the right rhythmic surveys in place and all the right tools, we should be in a position to gather the intel and the direction and the sound bites to manage to that. So as much as it's a tightrope, I don't think it's not an impossible task. And I do think that it's really important that we are constantly aware of that balance in our team members' lives.
So the soundbite for this point is the highest performers in a role are 800% more productive than average performers in the same role. Let's move on to number 7.
Number 7 is leadership that's self-aware and inspiring. And I think that's interesting that they've those two together, and I like it in that, leaders want to be inspirational. They want people to feel like they could or should follow that leader. But equally, that self-awareness and vulnerability we talked about as well in the last episode is really important. People want to be able to relate as well. And the self-aware leader is going to pick themselves up and go, hey, man, I missed that one, and admit it or see it. Equally, as a team, a leadership team, we should be willing to talk to each other and help each other maybe gain some self-awareness as well, because there's times when we're just going to miss stuff, right? And I've had instances in recent history where, man, I'm just not doing exactly what I think I would want to do in that circumstance. I think I'm doing the right thing, but when you get enough data points, you go, course correction needed. And man, I appreciate that. But I do feel like as a leader and a manager, I am constantly looking in the mirror, and I think we all need to do that. That self-awareness is critical.
The statistic here is only 25% of respondents say their organization's leaders are engaged, are passionate, and inspire team members to do to the best possible extent. Number 8.
Number 8 is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And again, whether we like it or not, this is where things are headed, is that we are becoming much more homogenous. It would be foolish of us to think that we shouldn't be embracing diversity. Diversity is growing because acceptance of differences between people is growing. Inclusion is essential. I've always seen these things as essential to a healthy organization, and equity as well. And the equity isn't just payroll related. It's equity of voice. It's equity of opportunity. I really feel like these things, I could belabor this point, but I don't think I need to. I think we all know what it should look like and what it could look like. The important thing is we look internally at our organization and ask ourselves, is it like that? I'll give you an anecdote too. So what I've seen, so I've sat on boards, right, in a board of directors. And I remember one in particular, and it was a 3 bags full board, meaning yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir. So everybody in that board would agree with the CEO, head of the board, and it was a very unhealthy organization as a function of that. And I would disagree, and I was railed upon and seen as a maverick, or not functional or not healthy for that organization. And the pity of that is that my intentions are really good. I wasn't trying to be disagreeable for the sake of being disagreeable. I just felt like at times we were on the wrong course or pointing in the wrong direction, and I felt like I needed to say that. I constantly talk to my team about this. I've got one team leader who she's very talented and really cares and works really hard. And it was very hard for her to speak up originally when I first met her. And every time she does speak up, I celebrate, and I'm like, yes. And she probably thinks I'm a little crazy because I'm encouraging her to dissent, to express her opinion, to express a different viewpoint. But what I'm trying to do is get this just diversity of opinion in the conversation. And it's not that it wasn't there. It's just that sometimes it's hard for certain people to have a voice or to express themselves for fear of retribution. And the organization I'm in is not that sort of company, so we really need to encourage people to to contribute. And these different data points, these different opinions, these different perspectives that come through diversity and inclusion and equity, right, will make your company like so much more powerful and so much stronger. For me, this is a really big one because I know the value of it. I see the value of it and I get excited about it because when it happens within an organization, that organization flourishes. And the stats, I mean, Jana's probably going to give us a stat here. So she can fill in the blanks, but the stats are overwhelming.
Here we go. More than 70% of respondents say their organizations express transformative DEI, that is diversity, equity, and inclusion aspirations. Only 47% say they have the infrastructure to realize their DEI aspirations. So there you have it.
So that's probably not the stat I was thinking about, but the stat that I know of is that when diversity is within an organization, the improvement in performance can be in the hundreds of percentage points, like just huge. Yeah. Yep. But you're right. A lot of organizations have that aspiration and they just don't have the infrastructure to exact it. And the will sometimes, but I think the will is there in most organizations today, which is exciting.
Yeah. Number 9.
It's mental health, and it's investing in, and they say, a portfolio of interventions. And the way I see this is that there's been some athletes, some celebrities that have come forward and expressed their challenges with mental health. And that's been really good to bring it to the fore that, this impacts everybody. It doesn't matter whether you're rich, famous, talented, doesn't matter. Mental health is, and mental health challenges are somewhat endemic in society. Certainly the COVID virus and the pandemic exacerbated that on many levels. We struggle with that within our family, with our kids, and even ourselves. And that set us off on a journey to hopefully, and I think successfully, improve our collective mental health. Organizations similarly need to be very aware of this, and it's hard because it's hard to acknowledge. Firstly, it's hard for someone to put their hand up. So we need to be very open to that. Someone, declaring that they've got some challenges or they're struggling. It's acknowledging that, and so embracing that, if you will, and equally having plans around that. How can we help that person? How can we support that person? Sometimes it may be additional time off. It may be helping them get connected with a health professional. There's a lot of different ways we can do this, but I think most importantly, it truly is creating a supportive environment where that person feels that not being looked at, strangely or seen as broken. Because I don't know many people that don't have some mental health challenges, issues, or concerns, and maybe they're very low level, and and maybe they feel they're non-existent. But we all do have stress. We all do have things that challenge our mental health. There's no question about that in society today. So it's creating that environment where people feel like that there's the ability to bring it up, but equally for the support to be there when they need it.
Okay, on to the statistic here. Team members facing mental health and well-being challenges are 4 times more likely than others to want to leave their organizations. Okay, last but not least, number 10.
So it's efficiency. It's boosting efficiency. And that is about managing immediate crises. It's getting really good and nimble. Again, coming back to the first point about, being like fast, responsive, resilient. This sort of comes back to this efficiency piece. An efficient organization is one that can respond quickly in situations, that is not over committing resources in maybe a crisis situation, but is also putting the right resources in place. So it's really important for organizations to have clarity around roles when a situation does occur, and clarity around procedures. Now, some of this, might get misconstrued. There are elements to this, just workplace safety and things like that. This is really more talking about when a situation occurs within an organization, being prepared for it. And so I'll again speak to the Affinity OS platform here. When we're doing our EMPS and MPS surveys rhythmically, what we're doing is getting lead indicators on things that might come up or might become an issue, like I spoke about COVID before and masks and all that stuff. So having these lead indicators are really important and powerful for a company to be well positioned to deal with that turmoil. Also experience, and I talked about Adesi's curve again. Knowing what happens in a startup and the chaos that occurs at a certain point in the trajectory of a company is critical, because you recognize it and then you can be prepared for it in advance, that it's coming and that you can track through it. I've had many conversations over the years within organizations with team members about this is pretty normal, and we should not feel like we're broken or that anything's really wrong, but equally we A, should prepare for it, and B, when we get there, recognize it. And when it's in our rear vision mirror, go, well, thank goodness it's over, but we handled it really well, hopefully.
All right. The statistic for this point is a little different from where you finished, but it says that about 40% of respondents point to complex organizational structure as a cause of inefficiency, and a similar proportion cites unclear roles and responsibilities.
Now, let me speak to that a little bit, because I do feel like the Adesi structure talks to this again, the curve. On the back end, once prime has been reached, if a company doesn't reinvent itself, it ends up in bureaucracy and aristocracy. And what's happening there is complex organizational structures and systems are put in place. And oftentimes these are implemented because of a one-off incident, like because of something where somebody did this, oh God, we need to put this system in place to rectify that, when it's an anomaly and it really shouldn't be another system to add to the pile. But inevitably, as organizations age, they do get things, again, when I come in and look at them, that they've always done it that way, seemingly. But these things become cumbersome and organizations become complex and unwieldy. And in a startup, you can't afford that. So, you definitely want to start lean and light in a startup, but it is a matter of having the right processes and pieces in place to manage efficiently without overcomplicating things.
So let's finish with making change at scale. So it's obvious that an integrated approach is required to address the 10 organizational shifts we just talked about. Let's finish off with 4 points to consider to this effect.
Okay. So the first one is the need to calibrate your ambition, or the company's ambition. It's to develop clear perspective and an appropriate perspective for the organization. So really that is just being aware of the organization's capacity and capabilities, the team's capacity and capabilities, and setting really good or calibrating the right level of expectation for the ability of the organization at that point. So again, I didn't mean to talk about Adesi so much today, but this curve really comes into this, is at various points our expectations can rise as the company's performance and capacity improves.
The second and third points, please.
So the second one is there needs to be a really strong focus on cultivating talent. And equally, there needs to be an investment in leadership. And these two things, cultivating talent and investing in leadership, will actually drive a company forward. And this is not my opinion. McKinsey is one of my most respected sources. I receive newsletters from them daily and feeds from them weekly. And I've got to tell you, like, almost everything I get has value and merit. And they've come up with these must-dos, right? And it is acquisition of talent and investing in leadership. And I agree with them. So, yeah.
Well, the good news is that this is all research-backed. This is all based in data. Yeah. Okay, so now what's the fourth point to consider?
So it is integration. We talked about right at the beginning of the podcast, alignment, execution, renewal. That execution piece is really, really important. Another way to think about this, and another framework maybe, is awareness, intention, and action. I love that. It's awareness of what we need to do. It's the intention to do it and truly having intrinsic intention to do it, but it's the action. The other one is the lean methodology. And in the lean methodology, they talk about build, measure, learn. Build, measure, learn. And it's sort of rinse and repeat. Because what we need to do is when we build a new system or we, let's say we've got a leadership growth program, we should see what's the outcome of it, measure, and see if it's working in the way we want it to work, and then learn from that and then enhance and continue to enhance. So, these are three different sort of sound bites: alignment, execution, renewal. But in the execution piece, I'd say awareness, intentionality, and action are, that's just powerful. When I think about that combination. And then the lean principle, which is, a very powerful tool, is build, measure, learn. So whatever one you want to subscribe to, they all sort of have a similar, tilt. And that is that we need to be excellent at execution, but it is coming in with awareness and intentionality and equally learning from what we've done and continuous improvement. Yeah.
Any final thoughts about the state of organizations in 2023?
I thought you were going to say the state of origin. The state of organizations in 2023, look, it's a turbulent time. And I think business is going to continue to get more and more turbulent. If you look at the rise of the complexity around, organizational health, right, it is definitely increased enormously. And it's not simple. But equally, if we're really conscious and conscientious, we can continue to move with it and refine and improve. And whatever sort of way you choose to go about it, whether it's the lean methodology or, more esoteric sort of intentionality space, whatever however you want to approach it, as long as you're pointing in the right direction of trying to always grow and attract great leaders, have a great influence on the team and grow great team members, and hopefully they grow into leadership positions as well, and influence the experience that your members and customers are having. If you're doing that stuff, then ultimately the financial outcomes will come. But it is it's challenging. So 2023 I think is really tough. I think 2024 is going to be tough, and I think it's going to continue to be tough. But I get excited by that because that means that we've got work to do, and we can exact positive change.
I agree, because what I do see is positive change, a lot of positive change. I know it's tough because it requires a lot of adjustment, especially on the part of the business owners and leaders and executives, because you can't treat people as commodities anymore. It is really difficult to get talent and to retain talent, and people are demanding to be treated well and for there to be balance too. In the work life. And, like you said, mental health is an issue, and we need to be focusing on this, and we need to be taking care of people. We need to be taking care of each other. And so while, yes, it's tough, it's requiring a lot more of the people at the top. It's time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm there.
Yeah. Thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate it. If you'd like to ask any questions or have any comments, please let us know. If you'd like to give us a thumbs up on YouTube or click some stars on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, we would really, really appreciate it. And we hope you can join us next time. Thank you.